Thank you. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm aware that I think I'm the only person from the food industry, so I'm prepared to be in the hot seat and take the questions. I'm a registered dietitian by trade, and I started my career working or counseling patients in a clinical setting at New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia Medical Center. I actually covered the CTICU and step-down units back when Dr. Oz was there, actually as a practicing heart surgeon. But I've actually spent most of my career working on the corporate side of nutrition for various food companies. And I've been with Dannon now for about 5 years. But I'd like to point out, as you'll see, we have a new name and a new logo. So we're now Danone Wave. We acquired the company White Wave just a few weeks ago. It was formalized. They're known for Silk, their almond and soy and dairy alternative drinks, as well as Horizon organic milk and dairy products, other brands like International Delight and Wallaby. And we're now the largest benefit corporation, or B Corp, in the US, and Emeren is actually on our advisory committee, one of the members, and so that's really exciting for us. And so just wanted to highlight that, more to come in that arena. And so I'm really happy to be here, though, talking about some of the positive things that we've done and our sugar reduction efforts. So first, for those of you who may or may not be aware, we actually made a commitment to the Partnership for a Healthier America back in 2013, and we have Adrienne here from PHA. And basically, the PHA, which I'm not sure if she's speaking, but a little bit about that. It's bringing together public and private sectors to help combat childhood obesity as influenced by Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. And so there were 4 prongs to our commitment around increasing nutrient density, reducing fat and sugar, and investing in research and education. And just to take you through what we have achieved, we committed to increasing the nutrient density of our portfolio by 10%, and that's based on Adam Dronowski's Nutrient-Rich Food Index formula at the University of Washington. And we're very proud. We have the 10.06 there, or 10.1 it rounds to, because we were very nervous that we wouldn't achieve those numbers, just because it's hard to project, as this is all based on volume sold. We don't go and improve just the small portion of our portfolio that people don't eat. It's based on what people are actually consuming. We exceeded our commitment that 75% of our volume sold would be low-fat or non-fat dairy. We actually are at 87%. 100% of our children's portfolio has 23 grams of total sugar or less per 6 ounce, and this was based on IOM's previous recommendations. And we couldn't exceed the 100%, but we did exceed our 70% commitment for the full portfolio to have that level of sugar at 78%. And we exceeded our $3 million commitment to research and education at $3.3 million. So we're very happy about our achievements, and they'll be more formally and broadly announced next week at the PHA Summit in DC. But we are aware of the research linking excess added sugar intake with diabetes and obesity and heart disease, and our mission is to bring health through food to the greatest number of people possible. So we are constantly striving to improve our portfolio. But with that said, we are also aware that the added sugar in yogurt helps make this tart product more palatable to the consumer. And it's already a nutrient-dense food, bringing protein and calcium and vitamin D. So it's, we have to find that right balance. And the added sugar in yogurt is actually contributing about 1% to added sugar intake in the U.S. diet. So not one of the main culprits, as we see, with sugar-sweetened beverages. But we are constantly striving to make our products more nutritious and delicious. And so to that point, it did build. So we have global commitments as part of our Danone company worldwide to further improve the nutrition of our portfolio. And I know it's quite an eyesore, but I just wanted you to see that we have commitments in terms of various nutrients, and I'll talk specifically about our commitments around sugar. So we have commitments for total sugar at 11.5 grams per 100 grams, and for added sugar at 7 grams per 100 grams. Obviously, being dairy, we have intrinsic sugar coming from lactose. And just to make that a little bit more understandable and relatable for us in the U.S., as we don't really talk per 100 grams, what I did is I translated this to a maximum amount of added sugar per 4 ounce and 5.3 ounce, which are more common serving sizes for us on the market. And this will and this is also when the added sugar will go into effect with the FDA new nutrition facts panel. So it's a maximum of 8 grams of added sugar per 4 ounce based on our internal standards, and a maximum of 11 grams of added sugar per 5.3 ounce. And my last slide is just to also highlight that we already have efforts underway that have been successful in this arena of reducing sugar. So when our commitment started with PHA back in 2013, that's also when we embarked on a 25% reduction in sugar for our Danimals portfolio. And this is obviously around total sugar, but most of the reduction is coming from the added sugar. And Danimals was then and remains our top-selling children's product, so it really highlights that we were able to make that change without suffering from a business standpoint. So we decreased our total sugar from 14 grams to 10 grams, and as part of this, we leveraged a unique blend of cultures to reduce the sugar, as well as a downward slope in sweetness intensity, and that's something we're mindful of as well, is helping the consumer, become comfortable and like a less sweet product. And more recently, in 2016, we reduced the total sugar in our non-fat Dannon Oikos Greek yogurt from 19 grams to 14 grams. And we were a bit more vocal about this. It might be hard to see, but we have it on pack, whereas with Danimals, we were a bit more silent. We had some social media events, and we also had a New York Times article, but we weren't as vocal to moms about the Danimals reduction. And that concludes my presentation, and happy to take any questions. Yes.
So I have 2 questions. That was interesting. I was curious about why you didn't want to tout the sugar reduction in the Danimals, and was it maybe people would be afraid it wouldn't taste as good or something. So I'd like to hear about that. And then I was curious about whether there was any effect on the bottom line. Are you still at the same market share? Was there any negative effect from doing this?
No, those are good questions. So in terms of not being too vocal about the sugar reduction, it's just that. The problem is when you tell people you've made a reduction, then they start to already think, well, it's not going to taste as good, even if it does. And we do a lot of consumer testing, but it's amazing what that communication can do. And I think Campbell's was a good example for the food industry when they touted their sodium reduction. It really impacted their business. So thankfully for us, it didn't. Danimals has continued to grow, and we have as a company as well. We're the market share leader, so it's pretty exciting for us. So, yeah.
I was a little confused between some of the numbers. So in the first slide, you talked about a goal of 23 grams of sugar per 6-ounce serving, and I think it was 100% of products met that standard. I mean, 23 grams is still a heck of a lot of sugar, so I was wondering if where that number came from, and whether that target number is going to come down, because that exceeds the daily sugar requirements for most children right there, and how that related to the second number on the other slide that showed, I think it was 11 grams of added sugar per 5.3 ounce serving. What's the difference between those two, and which one is the actual target?
So you're correct that it wasn't necessarily the most ambitious target, but it was already a decrease from where we were, as our portfolio had quite a bit of sugar, and those numbers though are total sugar. So it does include the lactose coming naturally from milk. So I believe it translates to about 13.5 grams per 100 grams of total sugar, which our commitment is now 2 grams less for total sugar. So we are becoming stricter in what we're committing, and many of our products have far less than that number, but they were tied to the IOM recommendations for sugar in dairy products.
And then my other comment, just to put you in the hot seat, because you invited that. I
asked for it.
You said that yogurts accounted for 1% of added sugar, but it is the biggest source of hidden sugars. I mean, consumers don't realize there's so much sugars in these types of products. So what do you say to that?
I would actually maybe argue that I think it's our Achilles heel. We actually get a lot of negative publicity for the sugar in our products. A couple of years ago, there was one of the morning shows. It talked about the sugar in yogurt versus a Twinkie, and I mean, it's apples and oranges. And we're very aware that we can do better, and that's what we're working to do. But I think we get a bad reputation for the sugar in our product when it's really a vehicle to bring a healthy product to people's diets. So I would, I'm just playing devil's advocate in that perspective. But I think people are aware, and we get a lot of consumer complaints about the sugar in our product. And I like the fact that we're putting added sugar on the label, but there's some work, I think, by IFIC that shows that it's also confusing for the consumer, as they're not sure if they're supposed to add total and added and exactly what it means. So consumer education is quite critical.